So Molly, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Vera, and thank you again for inviting Exawatt to speak today. I'm going to begin my talk from following on from one of Alex's points, which is that the cost of goods sold of N-type technologies is falling, with TOPCon now beginning to fall below that of mono-PERC for leading manufacturers in our modelling. And heterojunction, on the other hand, has more work to do to reach cost parity with mono-PERC. And this is probably most likely to happen if heterojunction can establish a significant efficiency lead over the other technologies. So let's explore the current module efficiencies of the different technologies. And here is an extract of the Exawatt PV module tracker, which is taken from our Q1 2023 update, which shows the distribution of current efficiencies by technology. On this graph, each column of data points represents a different technology category, and each individual data point represents a module series. Within each column, the yellow marker represents the production weighted mean efficiency, which is the average efficiency weighted by our forecasted manufacturer production volumes. And then the crosses at the top of each column represent the maximum efficiency of that given technology. So from this, we can compare monofacial and bifacial module efficiencies for mono-PERC, TOPCon, and heterojunction, and I'll cover XBC on the next slide. And both monofacial and bifacial TOPCon and heterojunction categories offer higher maximum and average efficiencies than mono-PERC, with the N-type technologies currently offering broadly similar efficiencies to one another. And one thing of note within this efficiency distribution spread is that the N-type bifacial categories currently have notably higher max and PWM, which is that production weighted mean efficiencies, than their monofacial counterparts. Now, these unexpectedly high efficiencies for some bifacial modules compared to their monofacial counterparts in the market could be a result of preferential selection, the timing of datasheet releases, and also maybe due to optimistic power bins on some bifacial datasheets. But if we look at the TOPCon technology category individually for a second, Jinko currently dominates the PWM for both the monofacial and bifacial categories, although Jinko's dominance of TOPCon in 2023 will be lower than in 2022. And while Jinko offers a large range of monofacial TOPCon modules with a wide spread of efficiencies, at the time the data was collected, Jinko's bifacial offering was limited to just one high efficiency module series. So therefore, we believe that the high bifacial TOPCon PWM seen here is a reflection of Jinko's choice of module offerings in combination with its current dominance of TOPCon shipments, rather than a reflection of any fundamental advantage of bifacial TOPCon over monofacial. And now I'll turn my attention to the back contact category, which is the far right column on this graph. And in this work here, we refer to it as the XBC category. So in 2022, both ICO Solar and LONGi announced they were commercializing back contact cells through manufacturing processes developed in-house. And on this graph, we've highlighted how LONGi's HBBC, which is hybrid passivated back contact modules, perform in comparison to the remainder of our XBC category. And LONGi's module efficiencies are highlighted on this graph in the navy blue. So as you can see, LONGi's highest efficiency HBBC module tops the XBC category and also outperforms both the heterojunction and the TOPCon categories in our dataset in terms of efficiency. So when we look at the XBC category as a whole, the category currently leads our dataset in terms of both the maximum efficiency and also the PWM. But despite LONGi now offering some modules that offer meaningful efficiency improvements over front and rear contacted rivals, the lead of the XBC category is modest, and the PWM efficiency for XBC is less than 0.2% higher than for bifacial TOPCon. And on top of this, you can see that the spread of the XBC efficiencies shows significant overlap with the other N-type technologies, and with many of the highest efficiency TOPCon and heterojunction module series outperforming the bulk of the XBC category, including many of LONGi's new HBBC modules. So that's a brief look at how the different technologies are performing against each other in terms of efficiency in the market today. And now I'm going to talk a bit about what end demand is for these modules. So this is our short-term PV end demand forecast. And this, where possible, is built based on a country by country or region by region analysis. And our short-term forecast shows strong growth in PV end demand, with end installations of approximately 330 gigawatts for 2023. And it's worth noting that our forecasts here, they're historically revised upwards rather than downwards. So that's something to bear in mind as well, that these might be a little bit conservative. And of the key regions, I'm going to briefly discuss some recent trends of Europe and the US. So starting with Europe, our global end demand forecast for 2022 includes approximately 45 gigawatts of installations in Europe. However, in 2022, there was reported to be approximately 85 gigawatts of modules shipped to Europe from China. And obviously 85, that's significantly larger than our installations estimate. And this would indicate a build-up of inventory in Europe. So with this inventory build-up, any bottleneck with installations in Europe would not appear to be caused by a lack of supply of modules or a lack of demand for installations. Now, when looking at 2023, it remains to be seen what will happen to that inventory that built up in 2022 and whether this inventory will unwind in 2023. And so in early 2023, it's entirely plausible that these installations in Europe will continue to grow, but that shipments may perhaps not be as high as inventories used up. Or alternatively, given the resilience and strength of the PV market, it's also entirely plausible that module demand will be strong enough that shipments to Europe won't be affected by the inventory that was built up in 2022. And there's a lot of uncertainty around this at the moment, but either way, we continue to forecast strong demand in Europe for 2023 and beyond. And now moving on to the US market, as I'm sure many of you are aware and how Alex has already touched on it, there's a lot of disruption in the US market last year following the introduction of the US LPA regulations. But despite demand being strong, the bottleneck on installations in the US was due to the difficulty getting modules into the country. Therefore, our installations forecast for the US for 2022 was decreased from our initial number throughout the year. And this is why you'll notice a decrease in US installations in 2022 from the previous year. But given how strong the PV market is for 2023 and beyond, we forecast that for the US, that growth in PV installations will resume, and this will be a temporary thing. So that's an overview of our short-term end demand forecasts. But how does this compare to our module production forecast? So in our forecast, there's a disparity between module production and installations, with module production naturally sitting higher than installations. But in recent quarters, we've seen the gap between production and installations increase in size, and module overproduction has increased from approximately 15% in 2021 to approximately 25% in 2022. And we believe that this increased gap between the two might be accounted for a combination of the following, which is shipments delays and a buildup of modules in transit, a buildup of manufacturer inventory, particularly in a growing market, delays from production to installations being connected to the grid, and an underestimation of AC to DC conversions for some countries. So I wanted to show you this, as this disparity is mindful to keep in your head when you look at our longer term PV demand forecast as well. So Exawatt's long-term end demand forecast, it comes from a different model to our short-term demand, and this one is based on the growth in global electricity demand and PV penetration into the grid. The long-term forecast doesn't include things like if the world were turned to novel technologies, like for example using PV for hydrogen production, and things like that would be a potential meaningful upside to our forecast in the future. But here we're showing three cases, a high case and then two variations of a base case, And then the table on the right-hand side, that explains the parameters that make up the basis of each of the cases. So the high case has a larger percentage of energy generation by 2030 and 2050, whereas the two base cases have the same longer-term endpoints, but the base aggressive case has a more aggressive near-term growth in comparison to the standard base case. So our base case applies approximately 800 gigawatts of annual installations by 2030, with our high case and the aggressive base case implying between sort of 900 to 1,100 gigawatts of annual installations by 2030. So either way, we expect PV demand to grow significantly through the remainder of the decade in all three cases. And this gives lots of scope for manufacturing expansions globally to support this. And from all our cases, 1 terawatt of installations annually by 2030 is looking entirely reasonable. But the next few years, they look likely to trend more in line with our high case here rather than any of the base cases. And it's worth noting that, as I mentioned with our short-term demand forecasts, historically we upgrade these forecasts rather than downgrades. That's also something to keep in mind. And then also you can consider that, as we saw in the previous slide, we've historically seen an overproduction of modules. So when you account for a between 10 to 20% overproduction of modules, you can imagine that it would be entirely reasonable that we'd see production numbers as high as 1.2 terawatts when you consider Exawatt's high case. So I will wrap up on that fairly optimistic end note that PV demand looks strong in the near future and continues to look strong out to 2030. So thank you all for listening.